All right, Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Ryan Hogan. Ryan, welcome. So awesome to have you on the show today.
Awesome. Thanks so much for Kevin, or thanks so much, Kevin. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this because
Yeah.
you and there's this company called Interview Valet, and you use them to
Yeah.
help make connections for you and get you on shows like this and stuff. And on the
Yeah.
other side, Brianna is the gal that I am in communication with. And I don't remember how long ago Brianna and I first met. Tom, the founder of the show, I interviewed him for the pod, or founder of the show, the founder of Interview Valet. I interviewed him for the podcast here probably about a year and a half ago. And so that's probably when I got connected with Brianna. And ever since then, she has just sent me amazing guests for this podcast. So I'm just going to let you know, Ryan, the bar is high, man.
That's it. No pressure. No
Right,
pressure at all. Here
right.
we go.
And but I'll tell you, I've got such an amazing relationship with Brianna that every time I get an email from her, it's like I was telling you before we hit the record button. It's like Christmas time, man. I never know exactly what's going to be in there, but if it's coming from Brianna, it's probably going to be good, you know.
Nice.
And
That's
and
awesome.
so that's how you and I got to meet. And so and what a beautiful way to meet somebody for the first time, which is through somebody that you've already got a relationship with. And of course, that's what this podcast is all about. And
Yeah.
so, Brianna, if you happen to be listening to this, thank you, because I know I really appreciate you, and Ryan, I imagine you appreciate those guys too and stuff.
Very much so, because they
Yeah,
they introduced me to an amazing host like you, and we get to
yeah,
jam out for 60 minutes. So
that's
yeah,
right.
they do
That's
great work.
right. Yeah. So what I want to do to start with, I want to turn it over to you here, and I want to, have you share a little bit about, what you guys do, what you do, and who you serve, and what inspires you most about the work you get to do and the impact that you're making, Ryan.
Yeah, that's I'll give you the abbreviated version
Sure.
of this, but it's what we do is expert sales recruiting. And the company's called Talent Harbor. Generally, we serve clients anywhere between 5 and 50 million. And the genesis of this idea came from my last company. So my last company was called Hunt a Killer. It was an immersive murder. It still is today, but it was when I was leading an immersive murder mystery experience, and it was a subscription box. And so
Okay.
essentially, we would send out clues, items, correspondence, police reports, case files on a monthly basis. Our detectives would work their way through an immersive investigation.
Okay.
The we grew it from zero to $55 million in 6 years. And it was incredible growth. From the outside looking in, everything was like we had our stuff together. On the inside, every day there was something falling apart. And I sold the company last year. And so my business coach came to me and he was like, "Hey, kid, you're not going to be able to sit still. Go pick your favorite line item and go do that for a while." And for me, it was people, the investment, development, coaching, mentoring, everything people related. But we spent about $1 million on recruiting. And when I looked at that line item, the thing that stood out to me is there's a different way to do this. The most important thing any company can do is attract and retain quality, amazing human beings. That's it. Like that's the fundamental. We call it an organization. It's the organization of humans to accomplish some mission, some goal, some vision. But the most important thing you can do is go find those people that are going to build this with you. And the fact that, generally speaking, it's inaccessible to small, medium-sized businesses because of this archaic 30% business model, it just didn't make sense to me. So I called the best recruiter we ever used at Hunt to Killer. Said I'm going to launch a recruiting agency of all things. Sold Hunt to Killer, and then took about 6 months off, and then launched Talent Harbor.
Okay. And so how long ago was Talent Harbor launched then, Ryan?
Yeah, officially we filed the paperwork September of 2024.
Okay.
But I didn't sell my company until last January, and then took some time off, and so both of us have been really kind of going after this for about a year now.
Okay.
Um, the reason that we're doing so well is because one, we've rethought the business model. We do amazing work, but she's a 25-year recruiter, and she's been doing this her whole life. She had her own shop. She sold her own shop, and now we're doing it. We're doing it all over again.
Very cool. So you mentioned your other business, Hunt a Killer, And how did you get into becoming an entrepreneur in the first place? What is your backstory, Ryan?
Yeah, it's been interesting. So I've got kind of two different professional trajectories.
Okay.
One is the United States Navy. So I've been in the Navy now for the last 23 years. 15 of those years I was active. I used to fly in the back of helicopters as an enlisted air crewman. Got picked up for a program called Seaman to Admiral, Stay 21. Got a commissioning, drove ships for about 4 years, and then transitioned into the reserves. So I've
Okay.
been doing the reserves things for the last 8 years. I'm a commanding officer out of Spokane, Washington.
Okay.
On the entrepreneurial side, this bug, this itch, like this started very early on. I was selling creepy crawlers in Mrs. Price's third grade class, shoveling snow, mowing grass, washing cars, whatever I could do. I had that little book that was at the Scholastic Book Fair, and it was like 100 different businesses for young people,
Mhm.
and I would just go through that list. But it was really a few years into the Navy where I started to build resilience and discipline, and I had all this energy, but I didn't know how to focus it. And so launched a company called Run for Your Lives. And it was the first ever zombie infested 5K obstacle course race. Basically, if you think back to Tough Mudder Warrior Dash Spartan race,
Yeah.
we were actually number three in 2012. And what our participants did was put on a flag football belt. It had three flags on it, and we had 250 zombies chasing our participants through the course. Grew
Wow.
and scaled very, very quickly, 0 to 8 million in about 2 years. And it died just as fast. Like it was a hockey stick up, and it was like a cliff down, and just demand dropped. And I guess once someone runs from zombies once, they don't want to do it again.
Huh.
And ultimately, it bankrupted. So it took about 3 years off. Called Derek back, who was my co-founder in Run for Your Lives, and I was like, "Let's run it back." And we did. We started off as a live event. So Hunt to Killer used to be this immersive murder mystery where we transformed a 200-acre campground into a living crime scene. We just couldn't figure out a way to scale it,
Uh-huh.
so we backed into a subscription box model, and the rest was history. So even today, you could go to Target, and we've got 6 SKUs on Target shelves.
Wow, very cool. Very cool. I love hearing entrepreneurs' backstories because usually there's a long period of I mean, heck, mine started in high school when I was in FBLA, Future Business Leaders of America, was when I first got the entrepreneurial bug. I'm like, this is really cool.
Yeah.
And I love that story. And it's this progression, isn't it? It's kind of you've gone through like three major shifts, if you will, or I don't know what shifts or evolutions in your entrepreneurial career to get to where you are right here, right now, and stuff. And
That's it.
yeah, and so with what you're doing now, with Talent Harbor, what's an example of a result that you guys have helped a client get that you're just incredibly proud of?
Yeah, so we focus on sales roles, and
Okay.
generally our clients are anything from home services, so think like kitchen floors, doors, baths, remodeling,
Okay.
roofing, um, all the way to business service providers. So think like MSPs, things like that. People that need salespeople, BDRs, SDRs, account executives, roofing, people to knock on doors. We do it all. Probably one of my most proud placements that we did. So we have a subscription model. We don't nickel and dime. We don't do success fees. There are no hidden costs. And so when a client comes to us and say, hey, we have this need, and we start sending them applicants that we've thoroughly vetted, they can hire all of them, and it's the same price. Like we've already done the work, so hire all of them if you want. And we had a client actually, just coincidentally, out here in LA, and it's a home remodeling company.
Okay.
The hardest thing to find salespeople, but commission-based salespeople, 100% commission-based salespeople. It's the hardest role to find. And we landed three of them, and we did that within 2 months. And that was 6 months ago. All three are still there, and
Wow.
that's probably been one of our more impactful stories.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So what's your vision for the company from your current vantage point, Ryan?
Yeah, I think I think it kind of depends on stages. Like, what do I want to do? I want to build a $1 billion company. Like that's, I've built a $10 million one. I've built a $50 million one. The $10 million one did not end well. Like you have to go through those. You have to learn some way. And
Yes.
unfortunately, I'm a hands-on learner. I need to touch the pot to make sure it's hot.
Yep.
Um, but we're doing something really interesting in a space that is massive. The recruiting and staffing industry is hundreds of billions of dollars. And so what's been really interesting about this is like we can do whatever we want to do. Now, today where we're at is we service small, medium-sized businesses. And so like today, where do I think this business can realistically get to? Maybe like 20 to 25 million using the model that we're using today. And we're well on trajectory and we're on that glide slope. But that's not going to get us to where we want to go. So there's going to be an inflection point probably within the next 2 years, and the question is going to be, how do we need to evolve either our offering or our market to continue to grow?
Okay, gotcha, gotcha. And and you're right. We I'm like you. I have to learn hands-on too. I mean, like, book knowledge is one thing, but the practice and the experience comes from doing.
Yep.
and
100%.
having that whole experience. And a lot of times, the our most expensive lessons are the ones that are the most valuable too.
That's
It's
I agree with you on, and if I could say one thing about that, like bankrupting Hunt a Killer was probably the hardest thing that I'd ever experienced, especially up until that point. And like when it went away, it was like I never really look at Run for Your Lives, but I never really look at companies as like my babies. But it's still like a part of what I was, especially at that
sure,
time, and it just went
sure.
away. And my whole thing was like I'm never going to have that again. But I think the most important thing that I learned and that I continue to learn through failure is you don't actually go backwards. Like you don't lose experience, you don't lose expertise, you don't necessarily lose your network. Like all of these things remain intact regardless. And so what was really interesting was when the next company took off, it was like really easy to navigate to that easy-ish to navigate past that point. So it's like one thing that it's taught me is you don't actually move backwards.
Yeah.
So anyhow,
Yeah.
little
And
anecdotal.
that's really valuable insight right there, because a lot of times when people think like, oh, the company went bankrupt, man, that's a failure. That's a huge failure.
Yeah.
And it's not. It's all our perspective on what we take from this. And you use it as a springboard for your next thing, you know.
Yep.
And
That's
that's
right.
huge. That's huge right there. And yeah, it's these nuances that make all the difference and stuff. Okay, so now that we've got a little bit of context set here, and listeners have an idea about who Ryan is and what Ryan does, I want to switch gears just a little bit, and I want to start talking about relationships. And so I want to start by asking, Ryan, have you ever met or been connected with a person or maybe persons that just completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, and if there's one thing, I've been in business services now for a year, and that's not very long. And if there's one thing that I've learned through this past year is like business is all relationships. And sure, like I sort of understood that, with the consumer product companies, but I was too busy building. I was too busy like in the grind. Now my whole job is to talk with interesting people like yourself, and like this is my job now. Like I have to pinch
Yeah.
myself each morning. What What's interesting is I'll tell you a quick story because it's kind of funny. Um, I'll tell you I'll give the name as we go along, but
Sure.
basically I was going through the University of Maryland. I got picked up for a program called Seaman to Admiral, and a part of that program, the Navy attaches you to an NROTC unit. You're on official orders, you're active duty,
Okay.
but your whole job for the Navy is to go to school. So I'm going to the University of Maryland, and I'm in the business school. And it was the start of a marketing class. It was the beginning of the semester, and we had to identify one person that we were going to connect with and present some sort of case study to. So basically, like you had to pick somebody. And so everybody goes around, everybody's raising their hand to go around the room. Someone's like, my uncle, my this, my that. And I stood up and I was like, Kevin Plank. And so Kevin Plank is the founder and CEO of Under Armour. One of the reasons that he's so renowned, especially in the Maryland area, one, it's a Baltimore company, and two, he went to the University of Maryland,
Okay.
and everybody laughed. I was like, that's like you can do anything. Like you in life, you can just do things. And so I had this deep belief that I would figure it out, and I was able to get to his assistant, and that's the highest that I was able to get at that point. And so I had to come back with, my tail between my legs and be like, okay, I couldn't get him. So now I'm doing my uncle's architect company. And that's what I wrote my case study on. Well, fast forward to the next semester, I'm sitting in accounting class and this person comes in before the class to do some announcements. And they say, don't forget, there's this business competition coming up. It's called Cupid's Cup. And it's run and sponsored and started by Kevin Plank because he gives back to the University of Maryland. I was like, that's my in. Because my goal never changed. I was like, but this is the end. And so I had a company at that time that it was the Run for Your Lives company. This was before it imploded. And I was like, I'm going to pitch my company at Cupid's Cup. And this was 2012. So that's what I did. So I went through the reps. I got accepted into like, the finalist and then like semifinalists. And basically there was five of us that presented. I presented. We won the entire event, and that gave me a certain
Wow.
amount of access to Kevin. And what was interesting, the reason that I probably wouldn't be where I am today is because I remember saying to him, he's given me a tour of Under Armour headquarters, and I asked him a question. I was like, "Why don't you just retire now? Like you at the time he was worth $2 or $3 billion, and like I was like, why don't you just go on an island and like just throw it up?" And he was like, "What? Like that's not why I do this. It's not about like, money comes, money goes. Like it's about we're changing lives, we're making impact. Like this is fun, blah blah blah." And he was like, "Well, what about you? Like, why are you have this entrepreneurship thing, but you're still in the Navy?" And I was like, "Yeah, well, I'm gonna stay in." And he's like, "Well, you stay in, how much are you gonna make?" And I was like, "I'm gonna make 70,000 a year in retirement when I retire 20 years from now." And he was like, 70 grand a year. Dude, you should be making 70 grand a month. And that little snippet right there, like it just changed my perspective. And like sometimes we need our minds opened. Like, yes, do we believe anything is possible? Maybe. But until you actually like talk or until you're actually able to like envision it, it's hard. It's hard to actually believe that truly anything. So anyhow, I tell you that anecdote because he became somewhat of a mentor over a period of time, and it was that moment where like my mind opened.
Yeah, yeah. And that is really powerful because prior to that conversation with Kevin, had that figure, doing that thing, 70,000 a month, had that even like crushed your mind at all at that point in time?
No,
Yeah.
no. And like even like, Run for Your Lives was doing okay at that point, but like, we may have been doing millions, but we were producing events. And so we were investing those same millions
Yeah,
into the event. So I
totally.
wasn't taking home 70 grand a month. I think I was taking home like 3 grand a month because I also had the military pay. So it just totally opened up my mind.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, and sometimes that's what it takes for somebody that you or that we just totally, have faith in and have respect for and all that to make that one comment that's like, "Oh, man, that never occurred to me before at all, but man, that just landed."
Yeah.
And I can see that. I can see that. And he's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And so now what has happened over so what year do you say this was when you had the opportunity to meet with Kevin? Was
2012.
2012. Okay. So that's been 13 years ago. What has happened over the last 13 years? Then, well, I'm going to reframe this question. What's an example of a situation where you personally, Ryan, got to make this really big impact and maybe in the moment it even surprised you a little bit, But you also know that would have never happened if not for the relationship and the interaction that you had with Kevin.
Yeah, I think, what's interesting about this story is about a year later, the company bankrupted. And so like that was some of the that was the hardest time in my life. Like in retrospect, it's really easy to think now, like, oh, yeah, we don't go backwards. That's not what I was thinking in the moment. Like it was like
Sure. Yeah.
6, 9, 12 months of just
Yeah.
like shame and like of course when you go bankrupt, it's so easy to say the word bankrupt, but like real lives are impacted. There's real vendors that were relying upon you to pay for a product or service that you owe money to.
Yeah.
There's lenders involved. um it's just it's not a fun place to be.
Yeah.
And I think, the big thing here was it took probably about 12, 24 months, but it was that reflection and it was those comments and it was writing and doing some other things that like I started to see the light again. And it was like 70 grand a month. Like, okay. And then you start kind of backing into the numbers. Like, what do I have to do to achieve that? How much money do I have to be making? And then everything becomes a little bit more like logical and you can kind of reason your way into a place of where you're like, actually that's pretty simple. 70 grand a month, I could pick up, 15 clients all paying X amount each month and there it is right there. Um, and so like those types of moments kind of pulled me out of some dark times. And that was the premise for the launch of Hunt to Killer. And yeah, it helped out a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really awesome. That's really awesome. So, what, I'm just trying to figure out how I want to frame this next question here and stuff. Um, well, you know what? So, for where you're going with this, what inspires you most about the work you get to do and the impact that you get to make, Ryan?
Yeah, I have a really kind of unique perspective on this because going from consumer, so whether it was like Run for Your Lives, then it was Hunt to Killer, now it's Talent Harbor. Like the biggest question I get all the time is like, well, how do you go from like these sexy businesses and like all these other things, and then you get into talent acquisition, and you go into recruiting? That's not my like. I was never an obstacle course designer. I didn't build the obstacles with Hunt a Killer. Like I'm not a game designer. I didn't do the graphics and write the stories or do any of that. Like my recruiting. I mean, here's another spoiler. I'm not a recruiter. I have partnered with incredible people throughout my career who are subject matter experts in that exact thing because that's not my passion. My passion was never zombie events. My passion isn't recruiting. My passion is solving really hard problems with incredible humans and being able to make real change. And so that's what lights me up. That's what inspires me. Can I share amazing like stories where we change other companies' trajectories based upon the salespeople we place? All day long. Does that motivate me? Yeah, like, it's exciting to talk about that. But where do I get my real inspiration, my real motivation? It's when I see my team come back with a growth mindset. We've iterated on something, we failed at something, and then we improved on that thing. And we're changing the entire dynamics of the industry. So that's kind of been my that's kind of been my calling.
Yeah, yeah. And I get it, man. I feel you on that because you're right. So, I look at the work that I get to do and it's just like doing cool stuff with people who are my friends. That's what it
That's
comes
it.
down to in the simplest of terms.
That's it.
And
Yep.
we get to make a really big impact. And that's yeah, that and so man, I feel every bit of that.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, I think that's what we all want, as entrepreneurs, that we want to just be able to use our businesses as the vehicle to make our biggest impact in this world.
I
And
I I love that you just said that, by the way. Like, and just to was it in the military we call it a foot stomp. So like just a foot stomp what you just said. You just said business is a vehicle. I say that every time I'm like mentoring entrepreneurs or I'm having conversations, like that's where I try and take them because people become so the business becomes them. It becomes their identity. It becomes their baby. And when a business is your baby, there's an unwillingness to call your own baby ugly. And so there's an unwillingness to change, to evolve. And all businesses is like a constant evolution based upon the
Yep,
signals that you're receiving. And the faster that you can receive a signal, interpret the signal, and take action on that signal, like that's the difference between winning and losing in
that's right.
business. And
That's right.
business is just a vehicle to accomplish whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah, yeah. Well, um, for anybody listening to this, Ryan, that they're like, man, Kev, I really love Ryan. I love who he is. I love how he shows up. And maybe some of them are even thinking like, you know what? It might be worthwhile for us to have a conversation with him. He might be able to help us, or maybe I know somebody else that he might be able to help. Uh, any resource, any website info we can share with folks?
Yeah, so the easiest place to find us is Talent Harbor. It's just
Okay.
talentharbor.com. And
Okay.
then if you go to talentharbor.com/Ryan, Ryan,
Okay.
all of my contact info is there. So you got, my email, my LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. And the one thing that I would encourage your audience is like my passion is helping. And so like if you have a sales need, great. Like yes, I can talk, I can listen, I can point you in the right direction. I'll introduce you to the real recruiter, the real star of the Talent Harbor show. But if you just have a business problem or you're just an entrepreneur and you're just like looking for another person to like bounce ideas, I love that. So don't just reach out if you've got sales needs, like reach out just to bounce ideas back and forth.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. 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 Ryan, any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
Yeah, your question was one of the toughest questions that I've contemplated. Like, because there's so many people that have made kind of impacts and differences in my life. Like another kind of runner up was a random gentleman that I met off of Reddit because one of the things I was doing was writing at the
Okay.
time when Run for Your Lives went bankrupt. And one day he came to me between that 3 year period, and I was working on a software company and doing a couple other things. And he was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, your background is in experiential. Like, he completely changed it. I shut down that company. It was called Polaris. Like, literally the next day, he was in town in San Diego from San Francisco. He had that, like, come to Jesus talk with me. I shut down the companies, called Derek, and then we launched Hunt to Killer. So I guess my point is like, there are so many people that have had an impact in my life. It's a great question, and it's like it's a really hard one.
Yeah. I appreciate it. So what did he share with you and what was the disconnect in that company that you just shared about the cause you're like he's right. This is give me some more insight into that.
Yeah, so at the failure of Run for Your Lives, I didn't get out of the running business. Immediately, I launched another company called the Navy 10 Miler, and we made pretty good. Like our whole value proposition was going to be this idea that you could run the Coronado Bridge. There's already a Coronado Bridge run, and it's run by the Navy. So the Navy has a relationship with the city of Coronado, so they shut down the big bridge, and they have a little, I don't know, 5K run across it. And I was going to do this 10 miler. So anyhow, that fell apart. I stood in front of I forget what you call the government panel, but I had to stand in front of them and like present. It was really interesting. That fell apart. And so I launched this company called Polaris because I was a communications officer on the USS Comstock. And the captain gets over the 1MC, which is the all hands announcement system, and he's like, "Hey, don't forget about the moms out there, because that Sunday we were out at sea off the coast of San Diego, but that Sunday was Mother's Day." And so as the commo, like one of the things that I saw was like our bandwidth spiked, and what I realized is like everybody was logging into the computers at the same time because they were all trying to buy their Mother's Day gifts, and I was
Oh,
like, there should be a software that solves this, and you can just put in. So I built this software called Polaris, and the whole value proposition was like you can put your spouse, your parents, your anybody that's meaningful in your life, put their birthday, answer some questions, put some preferences, and then it would automatically gift them. Long story, it didn't work, and then we pivoted into B2B. So we started doing the gifting, but we were doing gifting for businesses.
okay.
And so he came down and he was like, "Hey, what background do you have in software? Because like I had a software development company that was building it and it just wasn't going right. And I was like, that's not what I needed. Like I need this type of UX. And they were like, well, it does everything you said. Like, yeah, you built to the requirements, but it's unusable from a user interface standpoint. And so he just came down and he was like, do you have real traction? I was like, no, not yet. We're still figuring it out. And he was like, do you know anything about software? Nope, not at all. And he was like, but you've built this network and you've got all this experience and expertise in how not to run an events company. So why don't you just stop what you're doing and get back into the entertainment business? I was like, oh, that's a good point. And that, like, literally next day, shut down Poolhorse. We still had gifts in our garage and everything that we were supposed to send out. Shut it down. Called Derek, and I was like, let's run it back. And we used the same sort of methodology. So when you think about Run for Your Lives, it was like right as The Walking Dead was coming out, all these different things were happening. And it was just like we caught the wave. We
Okay.
did the same methodology. When we launched Hunt to Killer, it was like the podcasts, My Favorite Murder, Sword and Scale, all the true crime podcasts were just starting to like explode. So there
Yeah.
was all these like micro communities. You had escape rooms coming over from Europe and Asia. And so we were able to launch an event off of that.
Yeah.
The event worked. We found product market fit. It just wasn't the right business model. So we backed into a subscription box, and then the rest was history.
Wow. That's an awesome story. That's an awesome story. And, I want to, I really want to thank you, Ryan, for taking the time to have this conversation today and just share from your heart. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you. And man, I'm stoked to get this out there and share it with a lot of other folks. So thanks again, man. Really appreciate you.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Kev. Appreciate it.
You bet.